for most careers or most paths, you don't really know what it means to be an engineer, what it means to be, let's say, a faculty, a teacher, what it actually means to be, let's say, comms or arts major. Because the only time that you will actually know what you're going to do is one when you do the adulting, when you graduate.
Yeah.
Hi everybody, I am Rox De Leon and this is episode 6 of A Curious Character. This episode is a conversation with Ethel Luya. Ethel and I talk about her journey and experiences as an electrical engineering undergrad at UP Diliman, her motivations for going to graduate school, and opportunities as she transitioned to industry.
Hi, Ethel. Welcome to the show.
Good morning. Hello to your listeners or
All
watchers if
right.
you're uploading this in YouTube.
Yeah. So, yeah, definitely. I'm going to upload this on YouTube. Yeah. And so I'll just get into the point. Like, since I this is something that we've been talking about even before we recorded this episode, and I really wanted that more Triple E students would hear more about the stories that the alumni of Triple E
Hmm.
where they went to and all. So yeah, you were a student of electrical engineering. And can
Yes.
you tell us a little bit about your background when you graduated and all that?
Okay, so I was in undergrad 2011, starting in UP, and then I graduated 2016. Right after, I took my master's, and then that's in conjunction with project funding. So I was a full-time research fellow and at the same time a grad student. And then right during that time of taking my master's, I was also doing part-time lecturing or part-time teaching in Triple E. So after that, after my project ended, basically COVID happened in the middle of that. So now I'm working in the industry. So I've been mostly background is academe research. Now I'm starting in the industry sector.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks for that. That's an interesting career switch or like transitioning from academia or the university life to industry, right? But before we talk about that transition, can you tell us about why you chose to study electrical engineering? If you can like go back down the memory lane and like um go back to what year was that? 2011 when you were deciding for your, what
So the
course to take
decision
for
was
college.
2010.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
because
right. Yeah,
of
2010.
cat. Yeah. So the main reason actually, so I came from a science high school. So it's Malayan Science High School. And then so because of that, I have always been, I said, a top student. So I've always wanted, and I was good at math, the stereotypical, oh, you're good at math, go
Yeah.
engineering. So
Yeah.
I was asking my parents, getting an advice. It would be, okay, you can be a doctor, an engineer, basically around your common trajectories. So among those, basically, no, I don't want to go doctor path. I don't want to do 10 years studying. And then engineering. So that was the question, which engineering? Because there's
Yeah.
a lot. And if you look at UP Diliman has the most types of engineering courses that uh, there is. So the reason why I took up electrical engineering, so partly because I had this, I don't know, young innocence mindset of wanting to contribute to the environment. So that I guess is part of my main advocacy as a person. It's really basically a better environment overall worldwide. So looking at having that objective, and then I was looking, okay, what are the closest that I can do? So that was civil engineering if I want to go environmental science route, because that was the department normally taken if you want to do environmental science engineering. Oh, by the way, take note. There is an environmental science engineering in other schools like Mapua, Adamson, but since my goal was UP Diliman, I don't that's not an option for me. So the next one is electrical engineering because again, clean energy. That's everything under triple E, and then other stuff is like materials engineering. If you can create or whatever materials for better basically. So having just a very basic overview of what those different trajectories or different paths the main advice from me, okay, take electrical engineering because any field there will be a need for an electrical engineer. And I guess that's coming from people who only know electrical engineering as, people who do the electrical maintenance of all the buildings. So all industries
Right.
will need an electrical engineering. So that was actually the push on, that's my first choice for UP Diliman, electrical engineering. So I don't know if that's a good story, but that's my story.
Yeah, so it's basically you were driven by this advocacy or like this interest that you have. And then from there, that's when you decided, okay, I'm going to take up electrical engineering. Did I get that correctly? Yeah. So how was it like? What was your expectation getting into
Yes,
UP? And then
yes.
how was your UP life once you get there? Did it live up to what you were expecting from undergrad?
This is what I realized when I was invited to do a grad talk, like a graduation speech for my high school before, is that whenever you graduate high school, you never really know what the course you're taking is. No matter how you see, especially maybe, I don't know for other fields, but for most careers or most paths, you don't really know what it means to be an engineer, what it means to be, let's say, a faculty, a teacher, what it actually means to be, let's say, comms or arts major. Because the only time that you will actually know what you're going to do is one when you do the adulting, when you graduate.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and then you'll just get the glimpses in undergrad. You don't really know what the career is. So you're just like taking a leap of faith in terms of, okay, what's going to happen. So when I started triple E, basically, first year was relatively fine. That's your basic courses, science, math, high school stuff, at least for half of it. So that was fine. But then as you progress, and then I guess I didn't think much about that previous objective anymore. It was really, now my focus is graduating and focusing on my studies. So in a way, it became on the back burner, that objective of, okay, I want to do clean energy RE.
Right.
That only
Yeah.
came up when what? You're trying to find your topic for 190, 198. That's when it started to turn back. But then throughout that first 4 years, really, I think the focus had been, okay, I have to pass all the subjects.
Yeah. Yeah. And triple E is notorious for being a very difficult course, or like the institute is notorious for providing, difficult exams and all that. So how did you
Yes.
get through those challenges for multiple years?
I don't, I actually still don't know. I guess I'm just really thankful I did. There are like two subjects that I cried and I failed. So there was one
Wait,
class
you
that,
failed the subject? You
yeah,
did?
I did.
Really?
Triple
Which
E
one? Ah, one
143.
four three. Yeah, right. Okay.
Yes, so electrical machines. So that was a repeat for me, that I cried about that subject. So the other one, basically, it was ano nga ba? Pwede mo mag-name, I can name drop, right? So it's triple
Yeah.
E.
Fine. Yeah.
It's triple E 41, basically.
Right. Yeah.
So that was, I think we were the second batch who had this new curriculum, or third batch to take the revised curriculum for
Right.
41.
Yeah.
So it was very difficult. That was I think, the only subject where I had the midterms and finals where I did a whole week of really pulling all-nighters, that
Right.
black Bible book-ish that we
Yeah.
had.
You bring it
And then,
everywhere. Just hold it while you're walking. You know?
yes, yes. So what happened is, right after the exam, actually, I got sick. Both times, midterms and
Wow.
finals. Yeah, because of that stress. So I was
Wow.
told by the doctor that, at least for the midterms, right after the day after the midterms, basically, so we're supposed to go to the province to at least have celebrate with some family members who have festivals in their area. I didn't go, so I was home alone. And then because my parents said, you're too tired, just sleep for the day. And then when I woke up, I was basically vomiting. So I was sick.
Wow.
So nothing was in my stomach. So that's why that subject was very, very, very memorable. Because in the finals, that was Yolanda season naman. So
Okay.
the reason why I remember that, because since the exam was pushed back,
Did we
I
have to take
ac-
the exam
no, it was
during,
moved
after? Okay.
after, because it was moved. I remember Yolanda was on a weekend, and then I think it was moved the following weekday or the following weekend. So I remember that vividly because during that time I was having that sore throat because I was sick, and then basically during finals, everybody's either coughing, sneezing. Wow.
You just had to go through it. I wonder why we kind of seem to not even like we didn't even I don't know if there is like a petition from the students to please postpone the exam, or like it's just not an option for us, right? It's just like, okay, yeah, we'll take it.
Interesting question. So I was talking with a friend before who mentioned that in the previous years nobody really did that. So unlike now that we have the current
Yeah,
students,
we don't really stand up for our professors.
now it's like where there are students petitioning online through, let's say, the triple E reps to the faculty to say, okay, this is what's happening and whatnot. So I guess that's a major difference that has happened. And yes, on our undergrad years, we never had that type of sir, ma'am,
Yeah,
please move.
yeah. Request
Yeah.
for leniency and consideration, right?
Though I would say that in some classes, especially for the non-departmental, some faculty are actually, if you ask as a class that, sir, we have an exam on this day, can we move it the other, let's say the other day, the other week, they
Right.
are accommodating to that. So I guess it's not just as obvious right now because everything's online and you get it through the emails and
Yeah.
whatnot. But
Yeah.
there are faculties who are accommodating, I'd say.
How was your study habits back then? Did you? Because I remember for me, we were doing all not really all nighters, but like we're doing overnight study
Yeah.
sessions at the Prize
Yeah.
condo, Alba's condo, and all that. I would sleep, but like I would join because
Yeah.
sometimes
Yeah.
it just helps when you hear people
Yeah.
talking about concept while they're studying, and like
True.
were
So
you studying
for
with people or something?
most of the time, yes. So well, actually it depends. So this is something that I am a good self stud. I can study on my own, but I am better after studying on my own. I need to study with a group as well. So this is
Yeah.
normally the tips that I give I guess my classmates before or some students now is that one, you have to have time to study on your own, and then at the same time, if you can be the one who can teach to your group mates or
You're
share
right.
that ideas, then that would validate what you've learned or what you haven't learned, because this is the biggest, I guess, positive thing or the colorful life having an org. So I have a lot of friends to ask, okay, let's do a group study either in the library, let's have an overnight. So I have that resource of people or friends where I can study
Mm-hmm.
with. So that only happens for me for exam season. On the off exam seasons, most often I would say I still keep like a calendar schedule in terms of when are the deadlines. And then
Right.
since a lot of my time is taken up with org work since
You're very
freshman,
active.
yes, so I'm a very active undergrad org person. So at night at home, that's basically I have my own space. I do my own homeworks, and then that's it. And then most of the time when I'm at school, if it's not exam season, my free time is for some reason always about the org. And I
Interesting.
guess
Yeah.
I got by with that. So I don't know what the best habit is now, but I would still say that collaborative discussion, especially if you know someone who's really, really good. So we
Yeah.
know, we have people, the
Yeah.
smart people. Can you please teach us? So those
Yeah.
tutorials from your classmates is very helpful.
Yeah, and the review sessions facilitated by the orgs were really helpful. I
Yeah.
remember we were studying before for Triple 51, and Drew was, we were all
Yeah.
in the QZ, and Drew would do the lectures, and like we can interrupt him anytime and just ask questions. And that was really helpful. Yeah.
Agree.
But
Agree.
but I would like to go back a bit to what you mentioned earlier about
Mm.
your mindset when you were in the program. Like
Mm-hmm.
joining triple E or joining EE, you thought, okay, yeah, I think clean energy is interesting, and then you got into the program, and then it's like that went the back of your head, and then you were just like focused on how do I pass my courses, and
Yeah.
how do I graduate. But did it ever cross your mind to maybe shift to a different courses, because it's difficult, and if you just want to graduate, maybe I could just take another course where I could graduate without worrying about if I'm going to pass or not.
My At least for me, I can't remember a specific time where I had that thought. where I'm really, really serious about shifting. Because one, I don't know where I will shift. That's the main issue. Because again, I still wanted to do engineering,
Mm-hmm.
or I had that mindset to do in that field. So if I'm gonna shift, where? And then if I will shift to that, whatever that is, then what are the credits? What would I have to take? What would be counted and not? And since I didn't really have a failing marks in general as an overall type of student, so it never really crossed my mind to shift, because I guess on on average I'm not really part of that group of people who was really always like below passing.
Yeah, or like at the
So
verge of failing a course.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. But then after you got through those 4 years, fifth year,
Mhm.
now we are in this weird position. I don't know when you started to think about what you're going to do after you graduate. But for me, I started thinking about it. Fortunately, I had like an extra semester to think about, okay, where do I want to go after I graduate? But like for your case, when did that start? The thought of like, okay, what am I going to do after now I'm in my fifth year and doing my thesis? Where will I go?
Okay, so before, I think a big influence in terms of how I do with the career and whatnot is really from my family. I have a lot of I have relatives who have PhDs, masters. My parents, my mom has an MBA. My aunt has. I have multiple aunts or uncles that have grad degree. So I have this their husband and wife, aunt and uncle. They are actually very into the field of R&D. So both of them have PhDs, both of them have. So coming from the influences of my family, so they are from like UPLB graduate. So I've been kind of exposed to this industry in a way of friends having this agricultural field and whatnot. So R&D and that experience. So I was always open to do grad school because of having seen, okay, the people surrounding me have graduate degrees. People surrounding me are in the R&D sector. Though it's in the industry or the government, they are doing that type of work as well. So that was always open. So my mom was in the academy. She's been teaching in PUP she retired in PUP basically. So even teaching is an open option for me. That was part actually of my second choice
Yeah.
in terms of in college. So that those options has always been like, okay, I can go this route. So the industry was not really my main focus before, because I was always told that industry is 8 to 5 work, it's boring, you're just pencil pusher, etc. So like that. At least with R&D, it's like it's always pushing of the bleeding edge, the exciting stuff, and those like kind of stuff. So that was actually when Sir Mike offered me this an option or an opportunity to apply for this Picari project funding that he has. So it comes with a scholarship for a master's degree and a full-time research fellow work.
Yeah.
So that was already uh, an open option for me before the second semester ended. So that was even before I graduated. So come time the job application process, I didn't really take much seriousness. I didn't take it too seriously. So I just applied with the default sectors or the default companies that
Yeah.
any electrical engineering takes. But then it's like, since this offer for the grad school is kind of a bit 100% ish. So basically that's how it happened. So in a way, I that has been the default path for me.
Yeah. And then how was the grad school life transition like for you?
Okay, so remember how I said, the RE, the clean energy, that's if ever the R&D, I have this, I don't really know what it is, but I have this an idea of what an R&D should be from someone who doesn't know anything. Okay. So that vision, just trying to innovate, create or actually make something. Now with this project, truthfully, there are issues with, I think, any government funding projects. So I would not say that I was fully satisfied with how the project was in terms of outputs and delivery. And But I was very thankful for the opportunity, to meet researchers
Mm-hmm.
outside the Philippines, be able to present and interact with other universities as well. But then I realized throughout this project is that if you are just in the grad school or you're just publishing paper, it doesn't necessarily translate into something that's impactful to the real world.
Right.
So that is really my point when I was in high school, that okay, I want to be in the clean energy, really to create an impact. So, having that innocence, and you always want to help in terms of overall the biggest impact. So that's what I noticed, or at least that's how I felt being just in grad school for 3 years and in that research project, is that if this is not really implementable with your industry or the government sector, you don't have that framework, then it's really just being in the shelf. So it's nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. Side comment. I just realized it now. You mentioned that you were in grad school for 3 years, but when you add it to your 5 year of engineering, three
That's
years
it.
in grad school, at 8 years, it's like you took up a medical degree. The only
Yeah,
difference is that for grad school you're getting paid and you have a scholarship.
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, that's an interesting realization. Like when you think about it, you've been in school for 8 years.
I
Like your
know.
friends, our batchmates have graduated.
Yeah.
I think yeah, the PLE passers for 2020 are those from our
Yeah,
batch,
yeah. So a lot of
graduating
our
batch.
batchmates have just become doctors in the past few
Right.
months.
Yeah, yeah. So there's really this something about okay, after you saw, after you've seen the what research is like in UP and like if you can actually do the energy engineering and you graduated. So what made the switch? What was your motivation
That
for
I didn't
going
apply
to
for full time in
yeah, that you
UP.
didn't apply for a full-time faculty and like you decided to just transition to an industry position.
Okay, so as I mentioned, I was teaching part time in Tripoli as well. So I before, if it was just intro to lab, that's fine. I can still understand. So with the teaching, I realized that there's still a lot to learn and relearn, especially for the first times for the first round of teaching that subject for the sem. But then as you progress, I had this uncomfortable feeling when some students are asking me for advice in terms of 190, 198, in that,
Right.
ma'am,
Yeah.
how about this topic or this blah blah blah. So since I've been just in the academic, mostly theoretical, so I've always had that. So what's the practical approach? And since I've never been, it's hard to actually guess what is the actual practical approach to stuff. So even though some faculty are saying that they do have like consultancy work outside of Triple E, where they say, okay, that's actually here where you can have that mix of your academic and your industry
Yeah.
experience. But the way I saw it is that even though they have that part-time, let's say, projects with industry sector, but the teaching is really a full-time work in
Yeah.
terms of all the load, all the focus with the student, with the admin work, with the teaching and the collaboration with students, and whatever is on your plate.
Hmm.
I just don't know if that will be I don't know, a good way for me to actually see the industry, at least the way I want it. So that's why at the time when I graduated my from grad school, I never saw the option of having full time teaching without any industry background. So if in the future, let's say, I get bored of this industry, then there is an option that maybe I will go back to teaching, because I do like teaching. It's just that I don't feel comfortable enough to teach this, let's say, a very specialized subjects without having a good background to give them a good advice if they graduated and don't pursue the academic track.
Hmm. Yeah, interesting. I was able to talk to, or at least I got to yeah, communicate, like exchange emails also with people from academia outside of the Philippines. And
Mhm.
to be honest, many of this faculty also um, did the straight academic route, which is
Route.
interesting because
Mhm.
I thought many of the faculty members in the US, for example, would try to do industry work, but apparently
Mhm.
it's common for those who would like to get into the professor route, the
Yeah.
academic route, to just stay in academia forever, and that's fine. I
Mhm.
guess one difference is that for other universities, they do have these more established career centers that would actually, propel students and help them navigate their career. But for us in UP, since we're so underfunded, we don't, we don't really have that
Yeah. But take
um,
note, ah, I
option.
mean, we are, let's say, underfunded, but we are still the most funded university.
Yeah,
So that is still a
that's true.
blessing in terms
That's
of,
true.
but internationally, yes. But
Yeah,
that's why the experience of an R&D in having that experience, I'm still thankful for that. And that
yeah.
it's just that I don't think it is the environment for me right now.
Before we go back to the reflection and like comparing academia versus industry, so now that you're in the industry arena, can you tell us a bit about what your experience was like applying for jobs in the
Mhm.
pandemic era? How difficult or how easy it was for you?
Okay. So it wasn't easy, period. So there was a lot of down and insecurities and questioning about myself during that period because our project ended March, April of 2020. Okay. I graduated July 2019. So before, so because originally our project was supposed to end last year, it just got extended. Now, when I was finishing my grad school, my MS, I said that I will start applying and look in the industry. Now I did. I didn't got any job offer or applications because I had this like top three, four, I guess, agencies or companies I wanted to work for, and this was coming, I guess, with that uh original notion that if you are from UP, you will have this, advantage in this industry, which not really, not always. And that was actually where the reality struck. So I tried to apply for these government agencies and other private companies. And really, it's either I got no response or just flat out no. So what happened then is that, okay, since I still have that project until that March 2020, okay, so I still have work for that remaining half of the year ng late 2019. Now come 2020, I guess I still have the teaching position and that project, but then okay, this will end, so I was already applying again, but not really as fiercely because again I still have work and I still have at least a few months of savings, basically, if let's say I can find work right after. And then COVID happened, the project ended. So now, okay, I really have to start looking for jobs online. So the good thing about that is actually the end early 2020 I was hired part-time as well for another research project. So this is an energy
Right.
access research project under Ateneo naman. So so again, but that's still a part-time and it's an output based, so it's not a steady monthly income. The payment scheme was that once we finish basically like these different milestones, then that's when we get paid. And originally that was a 6-month project, starting like March until September, if that's the 6 months around the time. So what happened is that, okay, so at least if the my original UP project ended, I have that part-time as a research staff in Ateneo. However, but since the first milestone that was easy, COVID happened, it got harder for us to, let's say, communicate with the different agencies that we needed for this Ateneo project. So basically, the salary got pushed back and pushed back because we are all stuck. Okay. So my only income then was basically this part-time online teaching. So I got into another online part-time gig teaching Python uh, to adults class. So during this pandemic, majority of that I was a part-timer. I had three part-times basically. I was part-time teaching UP, I was part-time teaching Python online, I was a part-time at research staff in Ateneo. So that has been, but again, these are not enough to meet my monthly expenses, my monthly bills, and then my savings is basically depleting, and I am very conscious about my finances. So throughout that time, I got into, okay, is there's JobStreet, LinkedIn, and then I was looking how is the proper way to apply for a job online, because and then everybody's being laid off,
Yeah.
so it got harder and harder for me. And then I'm not sure if this is really just because of the pandemic, or am I not good enough? Is my resume or my experience not good enough? Because is having just an industry experience enough if you're going to the industry? Sorry, if I was only been, let's say, a research staff teacher, is that enough for them to take me in? Because again, for some of these companies, they may have a cadetship program for a new grad, but not really for a master's graduate. So was that really an advantage having went straight directly to masters? Because if I'm not getting any offers, or are they thinking that my asking offer is too high for, let's say, what their positions are open for? So really, that those doubts of, okay, so what skills can I put in my resume that would maybe reflect what this company needed and whatnot. So a lot of those things that, okay, so what will I do now? It's already what, September, October. Oh my gosh, I still don't have work. Like,
Yeah.
so after that, April, and out of all the companies that I applied for online, so yun, since I can go out, so everything was either JobStreet, LinkedIn, what are the others? You Caliber, etc.
Yeah.
A lot of them are actually still no response. So this was actually the year that I started to look at into LinkedIn. So okay, I will always see LinkedIn posts, okay, about HR managers, and how they're supposed to hire, blah blah blah, and
Mm-hmm.
how they are supposed to reply. Okay, is this really a turning point in terms of how people manage and how they should treat job hirees, etc.? And then how come people are not responding? So there was a lot of that. Okay, maybe I just don't know where I'll fit, and then there'll come a time, okay, what if I just take a leap of faith, go abroad, and then find work there? Because I heard that the visa in Australia might be a good opportunity for some of the UP graduates. And
Yeah. So
then
what visa is this again?
visa 476, I forgot the number, but basically it's this a professional, it's a visa, it's an 18-month visa for UP graduates. And I'm not sure if there are other schools involved, but if you're a UP Eng or science graduate, you can apply for this 18 visa either for studying or working. So it's a work or study visa combined. So you also applied, so you know this. Maybe you
Yeah,
remember
I
better.
did. Yeah, so visa 4-7, just for the sake, for just for the record, visa 4-7-6. This is a visa in Australia that engineering students from the Philippines can apply for. So if you graduated in a certain year, you can apply up to 2 years after you graduate, and you would be qualified to apply for that visa. And you can work and or study in Australia. So we have a bunch of our
Alumna.
alumni from
Alumni.
Tripoli, right, who went to Australia to work, study. So previous episode I was with Rai. He started his masters in UNSW as a visa 4-7-6, holding a visa 4-7-6. Now he has a student visa and all that, so that's an option for the students who want to go to Australia, right? And as the joke says, like, we now have a UP circuit Australia chapter
Yes.
because of the number of students that are UP ERG Australia chapter. So there are a lot
Yeah.
of triple E people from
Yeah.
Australia. Anyway, so going back to your story.
Yeah. So that was my, my down, my low points in this pandemic, in terms of I don't have that financial stability. My savings is draining. No company is replying. What will I do? And then thankfully, there was this one company that interviewed me, and they're actually the only company that interviewed me. And then I got into that company. So that's where I am now. I started this November. So it's and at least I was still thankful that this company is in a way still aligned with my relatively
Advocacy.
deviated
Yeah.
career path. So before I was always mentioning, when I mentioned high school, college, RE clean tech. So what I realized is, again, still during my grad school, that the energy industry is big. It's a lot. So right now I'm actually in the market sector. So though it's not related directly to clean energy, I'm still happy that where I'm working is related to the energy industry in general. So it's still creating impact for at least the customers that we are serving. So at least it's all good, and I'm still satisfied with how I'm working now.
Yeah. And when you think about it, most of the time we feel like what we're doing now is not aligned to where we want to be. But sometimes our goals just, evolve as
Yeah.
time goes by. And then when you look back, like, oh, okay, this is why I took this job. This is why I left
Yeah.
this place. And also, even though
Yeah.
it's hard at that point, it's going to help you in
Yes.
the
So
future
that's, I
as
think
well.
that's from your experience as well, right?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And
Yeah.
yeah, so now I guess now that we got to talk about your story, or basically your journey from choosing electrical engineering to going to grad school and then now going to industry. Um, Maybe we can try to wrap it up by talking about triple E, electrical and electronics engineering, or electrical or the course EE for your case in general. What do you think are the career opportunities that awaits for students who are taking up the program right now?
Okay. So this would be, I guess, for people or the students as well, that there, again, as I mentioned, there is a lot of path for triple E and even in EE specific in general. So I know for the triple E students or any electrical engineering, in the energy industry, there's always the generation, transmission, your distribution sector, and then you have your markets, and then all the other supplementary agencies or private companies that support this industry. Okay? So if you are into, let's say, the power systems engineering that's dealing with this sector, even if it's clean energy, that would still fall under this because it will affect your main grid, your industry. Okay? So we have private sectors where you can work for this one. So these are the path where it would be very beneficial what you learn undergrad, because if you understand the different aspects of the power grid, the power systems, then that's needed in terms of whether you are in the generation, transmission, distribution, market sector, whatever that is, or even if you're in solar company or whatnot. So the technical skills that you get from undergrad, that's good. Now, if you want to go, I don't know, I guess for me, because for me it was either this or the construction electrical engineering path, create the electrical building designs, etc. So for that path, that is, I think, more accessible because there are more companies who are, developers who are, having contracts creating buildings or construction highways. So if you are in that direction, there is a lot of opportunities for that as well. Now, for what I did there, there is part-time teaching, teaching as well. So if you are unsure right now if what you're learning will be useful in the future, okay, if you know that you want to be in this industry sector, it will be very, very useful. But if, let's say, along the way, you realize that these are not the interesting topics for you, this is not what you want to solve, or this is not what you want to tackle, then that may be when what you did or what you are learning now might not make sense in the future. So I guess that's for me if you really want to do the EE route. So that's the power sector, the construction sector. I don't know if there's others in between, but or the teaching sector. That's it.
Yeah, and a lot of it seems like is also a personal decision. Like, what are you willing to compromise or not really sacrifice? I feel like sacrifice is a very negative term, but what you're willing to go through in
Mhm.
order to be in order to do what you want to do after you graduate. Other people, I believe, would
Yeah.
focus a lot with how much is my starting salary as I go through
Yeah.
this job, and that is a very difficult decision. We do not want to attach our I don't know. Personally, I don't want to attach my profession with my starting salary because in the end, money doesn't really make you happy. It's like
I
I'm reading this book right now. It's called Happy by Darren Brown. It's an interesting book. Um, tells us about how our stories, how we shape our stories, will define our happiness somehow.
true,
Like how do you
true.
perceive what you want to do, right?
I guess yeah, I agree. So I was talking with one friend before. Is like, so he is a new graduate, and then basically pandemic season, he's trying to look for work. He has found work, and then I don't know. One of his issues is that it's a low starting salary, but then I when I found out the range, I said that's still good. That's still above average, I would say, in terms of for other people who are, I guess, in engineering. And then I guess I'm just saying that I know what you mean, that there are a lot of people who are focusing on the salary aspect and not as much on the type of the industry. But then I realize is that if it's a pandemic, it's really, really hard to get a job because I forgot to mention this. So at the beginning of the pandemic, I was still comfortable with not finding work right at the moment because I still have this focus. I want to go into this energy sector industry. So that was my goal in terms of looking for companies. But then come that's April, May, June, come July, August, September, I was starting to apply for even not the specific energy industry. So I was looking, okay, maybe I can start as data analyst, as a programmer because I have that small background skill. It's not my main forte, but okay, maybe I'll just try this different sectors that I just to have any income at the moment. And then I realized that when you are really at that point, it's hard to not look at the salary aspect of things. But then I realized that it's if you are already at that comfortable, and hopefully for the people who found started to find work, and if you're unsatisfied, then start to not look at the salary and then start to look at the actual work or the industry where you want to work at. Because if at the very get-go you're a fresh grad and then you just need to find an income, then okay, try to find work, but then make an upskill. Always try to learn from what you're doing, because if you're just complaining that this is whatever, then even if they change industry, no, that's nothing, that nothing's gonna happen.
Yeah, I love that insight from you, like because that's what my mindset as well. That's my reason why I went straight to industry after graduating. And when you think about it, I'm very vocal about being passionate about healthcare, medical innovation, and all that. But it's ironically my first job right out of undergrad is an IT company.
Oh, see.
And to be honest, one of the reasons for that is because I wanted to save some money so I could apply for graduate school and just have a steady income, so that I don't have to ask for money from my mom and all that. And that's fine if you're a fresh graduate. But
Yeah,
what's important is, and I really like that insight from you, the importance of making sure that you get something out of that role other than just getting some sort of financial incentive.
true. Agree.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great insight. That's the highlight of this episode. I love that. So maybe this would be my last question. If I am an undergraduate or a student, maybe a student or a fresh graduate having a hard time, or having a hard time deciding what I want, what I can do, or what I want to do, or what I can do with my course,
Mhm.
how can I find out more about what opportunities await for a triple E student? How do I
Outside
learn
triple
more?
E
Yeah.
after graduating.
Could be
Huh.
like as a
That's a
student, or like how can I maximize my time? So now I think we've established that while you're at this point in your life, maybe you're a student or you're a fresh graduate working in a corporate environment that you're not really so passionate about. How can
mhm.
you leverage what the environment can offer? So if I'm a current student,
Mm,
how do I maximize my
good
time in
question.
Triple E?
Good. So for me, I would say there are a lot of, online webinars or online courses. So it depends. So, webinar is just mostly talks or overviews. you can, if you can attend a live webinar, then if it's interesting enough for you, maybe you can do Q&A. So if you just want to look at where to start looking for these webinars to give you an overview of the energy industry. So this is not a flagging, but I've been with New Energy Nexus. So they are basically a startup company trying to develop other startup companies. Okay, so I think they're an NGO. But anyway, so they offer a lot of webinars, and then you can connect with other like upcoming entrepreneurs in the clean energy sector. But then and then from there, basically diversify your network. So for the undergrad, I know that it may not yet be in your mindset to know, marketing, networking, and then leveraging your connections and whatnot. But once you graduate, or after you've learned that it's very valuable to have to know people, or know people who know people. Okay. So I would say really just try to sign up with a lot of this exploratory, seminars, or even just online courses, and then try to connect with people and talking with people. Because aside from reading online, what happens, that can only get you so far, because not a lot of Filipino, I guess, Philippine articles or Filipino bloggers or whatnot do diverse explanation on what the industry is. So it's really, I think, talking with people to learn more, because me on my own, it's not enough to say what's the whole industry, because I only know one side where I've come from, and I will only hear what people say, and then that's so it's a second-hand experience. But again, it's, I think, talking and trying to learn every day if you have the time. I know it's hard
Right.
because of
Yeah.
classes.
But when you think about it, when we were suffering from undergrad, that's when we built the friendships, right? The friendship
Yeah,
with people. And now when you look back, these people are like in
your
Australia,
connection.
in the
Yeah,
US, or like getting to these places. And these are connections that we've built. And yeah, I feel like
true.
in Tripoli or in college in general, it's although we are focusing about what we learn, but also we want to look at what who we meet and the
Agree.
connections we build. And that's, I guess, this is not a plug, but that's one of the benefit of us being at UP Circuit. That's where we
Yeah,
got to interact and bond and have that, other than
yeah,
having that support group, like reaching out to people later in
yeah.
life. And yeah,
Because again, even for people asking this, so whether it's in, let's say, online, Reddit, in the anonymous pages in Facebook, again, whenever you have questions, it's always there would be someone to answer. So if you're unsure what's the industry like, then listen to this podcast. Read
well,
Reddit, ask
right,
people. So basically, if there's something that catches your interest, then that's an indication for you to explore, especially if you're, lost still right now, because it's still common. I was lost when undergrad. I was lost during that part of the research phase in grad school. During this pandemic, I was trying to find myself in terms of what career do I want? Will I fall back to teaching? Will I really push with the government or industry? Where will I go? So, you need to just have the patience to understand and see clearly as well where you want to go, what are the opportunities, and there.
yeah. Yeah, well, this was a very interesting and productive conversation. I think it's very insightful personally. So thank you very much for your time, Ethel. And
Thank you.
maybe we
For
have a next like follow up episode, Char.
Maybe.
All
So
right.
anyway, anytime, just invite. We are always talking even outside of this
Yeah, for
podcast.
sure. For sure. And
I will.
I'm really thinking about who to invite afterwards. So right now I'm thinking about inviting people from other industries also. Like, I don't know if we have yeah, I told you about this earlier that I don't know if we have friends in the telco industry that we could I could invite and like talk with
We have
and
people
all.
working in Nokia, but
Yeah,
that's, I don't know if you'll count that as our telco as in Smart Globe, but
yeah, yeah. And then but
yeah,
just putting it on the record because I'm writing a blog post right now about what is triple E worth it? That's the title. And I still haven't done. Still haven't completed it, so I'm just going to put it on record. Like, if you're looking for opportunities, I feel like it's worth it. The short answer is, at least for me, that we could go to different industries. So some include
Yeah.
telecommunications, semiconductor industry. Others will go to petroleum, right? Oil
Mm.
industry,
Yeah.
energy. What else? IT, of course.
Because
Data
yeah.
science.
Because as I mentioned, I guess the reason why I was pushed to taking electrical engineering, all industry will need an EE. So that in
Yeah,
a way, that's
yeah,
basically. So regardless of where you are, EE, ECU, or COE, a lot of industries will need or will always have one of those three.
yeah. And you can
So
use any of the skills that you've learned from undergrad in any of
yeah.
those. And with the difficulty of the courses, I feel like our learning curve has become, quite faster.
Well, I would hope so, but I just again one thing to take note is that I guess to always emphasize for students is that it's not always the technical skills that matters, it's also your
Right,
soft skills.
right. Yeah,
So be able to develop that in conjunction with your technical know-hows.
yeah. And that is part of the hidden curriculum, as they say. So we have this curriculum that we had, the classes that we should take. But
Mhm.
behind those curriculum, we have the hidden one, which are the soft skills, the networking, communication,
Agree,
and
agree.
yeah. And the thing that you learn, like in class, like, okay, you have this group mate who's not replying at all. Well, that just prepares you for when you go to the job market, the corporate world, that you have, slacking office mates and
Yeah.
also. Yeah. Well,
Is that your rant?
no, not really. Yeah, like my sister was ranting about one of her group mates not replying, and I'm like, yeah, well, it's preparing you for the job market. Like when you go to work, not everything's not. I mean, life's not gonna be perfect, so you have to. And school prepares you for that, the imperfection of working with people,
Yeah.
working with a team, and all. So yeah, I guess I'm gonna end this recording here, and thanks
Okay.
very
Thank you.
much.
Thank you.
That is it for this episode. I really enjoyed chatting with Ethel, and I hope to share more similar stories in the future. If you like this episode or would like to suggest a future topic, let me know by sending me a quick message. My Twitter handle is at roxalt, that's ROXSALT, or send me an email at roxalt.acc@gmail.com. Bye!